Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Sincere and welcome back to the Standard 81 podcast. But before we get started on anything today, let me go ahead and take a 30-second break and I'll be back with you in one moment. All right. All right, everybody, we are back. And today, I'm just going to kind of go through a broad overall view of my relationship history and what I'm doing now. I know this is not really a memoir, but I guess anything that has to do with me, past or present, can be recorded for history's sake. So let's start in the past. My overall general history as far as relationships and dating is not that tremendously exciting. Um, I've been in I've been engaged twice, um, and throughout my life, I think I've been in four serious relationships. Uh, Two, of course, being my ex fiancées, and the other two I vaguely remember. No, I remember one, and then the other one I vaguely remember. All the rest of my history is kind of just dates, maybe for three weeks to a month. Nothing serious. And I know the perception of me saying something like that is like, wow, you just out here um, just being wild and doing the most. And I'm here to tell you honestly, I wasn't, because I wasn't out here sleeping with women. I don't have any children um, to speak of, and not because I'm not claiming children. I don't have any. I'm not out there like that. I am, however, looking for a wife, and when you're doing it the way that I do my relationships, a lot of times it can seem like you're just running through people, but honestly, that's not it. You're what you're doing is you're taking the time to talk to a person, conversate, have a few conversations, maybe engage a few times, and then make a determination on whether or not you want to proceed any further, which I think is the right way to do it. Because here's what you can ultimately avoid. You can ultimately avoid a lot of heartache, headache, and emotional trauma. And not to mention that people are having sex now like it's water. Um, you can also avoid any pregnancy diseases and the emotional soul ties, as well as the mental soul ties that go along with having unprotected sex and a marriage outside of wedlock. Period. Um, so that's where I stand on my whole dating history. The I tend to be very direct in my approach, which can be a good thing and can be a bad thing, because a lot of times I fail to negate that there's a difference between me and the other person, and I am just shooting straight from the hip, expecting answers so that I can proceed forward, because that's the kind of the way I live my life. I'm like, okay, look, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? So I can proceed forward. And if it's not going to proceed forward, I need to go ahead and cancel it off so that I can move to the next thing that I got to do. Which, when you're dealing with people, oddly enough, it can't always work like that. Now, I'm not saying that If you know something is not working, continue to proceed, but there has to be a degree of um, decorum. Well, I don't even think that's the word for it. I think there has to be a degree of empathy and sympathy for the other person um, you're trying to participate with. And know that even if you were raised in similar circumstances, that you weren't raised the same exact way, because they're not your brother, they're not your brother or your sister. They are somebody else's child, and they were raised differently, even if the differences are minimal. They were raised differently. So you have to take all that into practice and into thought when you are proceeding forward in a relationship. And I can only tell you that because it's something I've had to learn over the course of time, between getting therapy, which I highly recommend BetterHelp. I've used their services on several different occasions, um, to talk to a therapist. Great, 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 great. But I would also say you need to study who you are as a person. Sit down with yourself. There needs to be a time of just being alone with your own thoughts, because at some point I even had to realize that I am putting too much um, value into something that ultimately could go away. Now I know why you're saying. I know what you're probably going to say. Like, wow, you tend to think on the negative side, but here's the way I tend to think about it. It's I can't control how a person is going to react or act when they're engaging with me on that level. So what I tend to do in those particular situations now, as opposed to other times, is I tend to hang back and just kind of let it loose. If anything, I'm gonna try to push you away quickly, because the more I engage, the more I tend to uh, want to do, and the more I tend to want to uh, get my emotions involved, which is not a bad thing if you know that you're headed in that direction. But when you're searching for something and you think you found it, you tend to want to engage with it quickly so that you won't lose it. And I've had to learn to slow myself down mentally so that I won't go in that direction as quickly, and learn to hang back and uh, do things loosely versus necessarily going all in. Now, what I have done, however, is I tend to ask very direct questions up front, meaning um, a lot of questions about the future, how they deal with it, how they handle certain situations, what do they want their financial outlook to look like after getting married, what kind of lifestyle do they want to live, so on and so on. Which to a lot of people, those kind of questions are taboo. But I would say this, like I always say, if first you want to build the house, count the cost, right? So if you know the expectations of a person and you get involved with that person beyond just I'm getting to know you, and we're getting to know each other, we're kind of hanging out and filling things out. You can't sit there and get defensive when all of a sudden their expectations, the the expectation on you is that of what you can't accomplish or achieve or even want to achieve. you should ask those questions up front. And if they're offended by that, then number one, you know that person probably not the person for you anyway. And two, if you find out, you can gauge whether or not you should continue forward. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a certain amount of fear when hearing people's expectations, especially if if you're in process of doing stuff, much like many Americans, especially with the expectations of certain people nowadays. Everybody, men and women alike, I am not just going to sit there and tell you that it is women only. Um, Men and women alike want to live these lives of luxury and ease. Um, I hear a lot of gentlemen and men in particular say work hard during this course of time in your life, in particular your 20s and into your 30s, so that once you get to this particular age, you can live a life of ease and luxury and stuff like that. Well, let me say this, and I know I'm kind of veering off the topic of my history, but I'm going to go back to this. Everybody is not going to be rich. Everybody is not going to have a six-figure salary. Every man, I don't care how hard you work. If everybody is at six figures, then six figures is nothing. If everybody is at seven figures is nothing. It's common. So let's just get that thought out there, right? Does this mean that a person is not doing the best that they can, or or trying to fulfill goals in life, and trying and going for opportunities? No, it does not. What it does mean is that everybody is not going to be afforded the same thing. That is a Marxist way of thinking, that everybody, just because they are, deserves these opportunities. Some of it is through hard work, absolutely. But to say, oh, I'm working hard and you're working hard and we both are doing the same thing, so we should both all get the same stuff, that's a Marxist way of thinking. And I'm not going to go into Marxism. You can look that up for yourself. But needless to say, to think everybody's going to be at the same levels is all the time, and everybody's going to get the same thing, irregardless of how life plays out, is preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous. Anyways, so back to what I was saying. My dating history, if you were to look at it on paper, seems to be a revolving door of different women, right? Because I personally don't have any trouble with talking to women, getting women's number, or getting them to engage with me on a surface level. The trouble I always have is when we start pushing past the surface things, meaning the hangouts, the dates, the phone calls, and stuff like that. It starts to it begins to get messy, and I don't tend to like to take a whole lot of time to mull that over, especially as I've gotten older. Um, I like to just be like, okay, this ain't working, done. This I ain't liking this, I'm through. And so at one point, I'm talking to one girl, and then next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she's gone. I'm talking to another girl. Next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she's gone. I'm talking to somebody else. Next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, gone, 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 gone. And it sounds like I got a ton of opportunities. I don't, but The one thing I will tell you is I'm not afraid to shoot my shots. I'm not afraid to um, go after what I perceive to be a good thing, or somebody that I in general like, because that's the one thing I think guys are failing to do. I know that there's a lot of skepticism out there that says don't approach women, don't. But I'm gonna tell you like this, man. The Bible says, "He who finds a wife finds," meaning you got to do something. You can't just sit there and twiddle your thumbs and hope that they just gonna fall in your lap. God only did it once. He created an Eve for Adam, but somebody has to do the searching and somebody has to do the finding. So if you don't have a parent or a relative or somebody kind of looking out for you, and looking on your behalf, on behalf of you and your situation and what it is uh, the expectations that you got to do it yourself. You got to do it yourself, and you can't be scared, because here's the thing: you're going to learn. You're going to learn how to handle rejection. I learned how to handle rejection. Does that mean it becomes easy? Does that mean that you like it? No, you just learn how to handle it. And the more you're able to deal with no's, the better off you are, because in reality, as far as relationships go, it only takes one person to say yes, and that's supposed to be the end of it. This is why it is highly critical, and this is why I tend to ask a lot of pointed questions up front, because I want to avoid the major pitfalls that I see happening within society and within dating nowadays. Period. I want to be able to avoid that stuff. Sure, is it could it be a turnoff, and can it be seen as a caveat and something less desirable? Absolutely. But all I need is one to say yes and agree with the things that I'm saying, and I agree with the things that she's saying. We can ride off into the sunset. The more yeses I get, the better off the closer I am to the end of the journey. That's all it is. And then you can continue to write the rest of your life together. So I'm gonna wrap this one up pretty quickly. So what does that say to about my particular dating history? And what am I translating out here? I am saying to you, fellas and ladies, just because you have standards for yourself, and I've talked about preferences versus standards, especially in the last one where I just went off. Check that one out. That one's definitely, I talked about standards versus preferences, and I defined both words within that particular podcast I did on Saturday. So check that one out. But just because you have standards, and it may seem to onlookers that you are passing up and missing out on opportunities to possibly engage with somebody and find somebody, don't limit yourself to just that. But as well, as I would say, don't limit yourself to that, just that. Don't limit to yourself to the things that you know either, because you could be potentially missing out on the best thing for you as well. Take everything back to God, use your discernment, and ask for his wisdom. You know I'm going to take it there, because I am a Christian and I am going to bring it back to the Lord Jesus Christ every single time. Take it back to God, get his wisdom, and see how you can see how you should proceed forward. And just know this: sometimes the answer you get from him may not be the one that you want, but if you do it his way versus the one you want, it's ultimately going to be better. So I hope that uh, brief insight to my dating life helped you. I know I rambled on a little bit and did some bunny trails, but uh, inevitably, everything that we do is going to affect our relationships. So I like to expand a little bit on certain points. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, check out the Standard 81 podcast over there on TikTok, and check out my Instagram at Sincere the Artist. I got plenty of content up there, and go ahead, hit that like button, hit the share button if you think somebody needs this, and subscribe for me. I greatly, greatly appreciate that. That's going to help me get the message out, and that's going to help me do a lot more stuff that I would love to do. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.